Miss Ramirez, and in this segment, we're going to be learning about a special word, and that is reproduction. So y'all learned about characteristics of living things in a previous segment. So one of those characteristics of living things is that living things can reproduce. So think about what that means to reproduce. But before we talk about that science word reproduction or reproduce, I have a couple of living organisms that I want to show you guys. The first living animal that I want to show you guys is a pet rabbit. Her name is Mochi, so I'm going to go and pull her out. And just to give you guys another movement break while I'm trying to pull this rabbit out, if you would like, you can take a quick moment to stand. You can put on your bunny ears and you can do 5 bunny hops to keep you busy while I try and pull out this rabbit. Okay, so this is the rabbit. Her name is Mochi, and she is a living thing. So you learned about living things earlier. What are some ways that we can tell that Mochi is a living thing? So think about, what does she need since she's a living thing, and how can we tell that she's alive? So since I'm able to hold her, I know that she's alive because I can actually feel her breathing. If you look at her little nose over here, you can see it's twitching, so she's smelling. She's also breathing through her nose. She's a living thing, so she needs food to eat. She needs water to drink. So she does have needs since she's a living thing. And something special about her, since she is a living thing, she has the ability to reproduce or have baby rabbits someday. So that's Mochi. You guys can say bye to Mochi. I have another animal I'm going to show you guys. This is Pepper. Pepper is a blue silky chicken. So the rabbit was an animal called a mammal because the rabbit had hair or fur. Pepper, on the other hand, has feathers, and so we know that she is a bird. And we know that Pepper is a living thing because she needs food, she eats, she drinks. She can also reproduce. So if she wanted, or if she could, sometimes she actually lays eggs. So she does have the ability to reproduce or have young and offspring. So that's Pepper, the chicken. So I'm going to go ahead and put her up. Now we're going to go back to that special science word reproduction. So we're going to do a quick little PowerPoint to understand what that word means. So let me start our screen share and then we'll look at some pictures. So again, we're going to be learning about reproduction. And by the end of this segment, you guys should be able to answer these 2 questions. The first question is, do non-living things reproduce? The second question is, you should be able to tell your teacher 3 examples of living things that reproduce. So keep those 2 questions in mind as we go through the presentation today. So reproduction is super simple. All that word means is that living things have the ability to produce babies or offspring. So take a look at these pictures here. We have the adult animal. We have the mom cow and a baby calf. We have the mom dog and the baby puppy. We have the pig and the baby piglet. We have the deer and the baby fawn. So again, reproduction just means the ability to have babies or offspring. But animals aren't the only things that can reproduce. Trees and plants can reproduce too, because again, they are a living thing. So plants and trees can grow and reproduce offspring too. So for example, especially during the fall time and even now, you can probably still see acorns lying around on the ground. Those acorns are actually seeds. So if you plant them, they will grow and turn into an adult tree. That adult tree will then produce more seeds, and then the whole life cycle will continue again. So an acorn is just a seed. And again, we know that seeds can turn into other plants and trees. So plants and animals reproduce. They can make more of themselves. So we know that living things reproduce, and we know that they can create offspring, and offspring again are just new living things that look like those adults. Now, if we take a look at our little picture here, we have living and non-living things. So my question for you guys is take a look at those non-living things. There's a picture of a rock and a table and a car. Do you think those non-living things can reproduce babies or offspring? So hopefully you guys said no. So non-living things cannot grow, they cannot reproduce and have babies or offspring. So please remember that. So again, today in this section, we are focusing on the living things that can reproduce and create those babies and offspring. So here's a quick little video. We saw Pepper the chicken. Here's a quick little video that shows how the chicken changes as it grows. So I'm gonna play the little video. You'll see the egg. There's a baby chicken side, and it's slowly gonna start pecking its way with its strong beak to break out of that egg. So it's hatching. I'm gonna fast forward it just a little bit so you can see more of the video. But eventually that cute little baby chick is going to hatch out. And do you think that baby chick is gonna look like that forever throughout its life? So hopefully you said no. Eventually that baby chick, once it meets its needs, it gets its food and water and proper care, it will eventually grow and turn into an adult chicken. So we call that a life cycle. It's how an animal or plant changes as it grows. And I'll stop that video there. And just on a side note, on your own time, see if you can name some other animals that lay eggs. So we already talked about a chicken, but can you guys think of other animals that lay eggs too? In our next little video, or we have some pictures of Pepper the chicken, who you saw earlier. We have a picture of Pepper when she was a baby chick, and then we have some examples of some eggs. So Pepper did change as she grew up, and again, Pepper's an adult chicken now, so she could reproduce and have other offspring. So let's take a look at what we see. We have the egg, we have the baby chick, and then we have the adult chicken. And if we look at our little arrows here, the chick hatches out of the egg. Given enough food and proper care, that baby chick can grow into an adult chicken. And then that adult chicken can mate and reproduce and start the whole cycle again and lay eggs to have more offspring. So we know that adult plants and animals can reproduce offspring. Now, not every animal lays eggs. Some animals can give a live birth. So let's look at an example with our rabbit. Remember Mochi the rabbit? So let's take a look at what the rabbit looks like when it's a baby. So that's the little rabbit nest. The mom rabbit makes a nest using her fur. And you can see those little baby rabbits, they have no hair. So when they're babies, they don't really have a lot of fur on them. They're rather pink and tiny. They're about the size of my thumb. They look kind of ugly to me because they don't have that fur on them. But as they get older, they will get cuter. We call the baby rabbits a kit or a kitten. I know it sounds kind of weird because we think of a cat, but that's just what they call a baby rabbit. And you can see as that baby rabbit starts to grow, it gets bigger. It starts to grow more hair or fur. Look how its body is changing. Its ears are getting longer. Its body is getting bigger. Its feet are getting bigger. And eventually these baby rabbits, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit, will start to increase in size. So that's why it's important that animals meet their needs, that they get enough food and water to help them grow. And then as we continue through, eventually those cute little baby rabbits will start to look even cuter as they get older and bigger. And once they become an adult, they could potentially have baby rabbits of their own. So that's an example of an animal that gives live wild cottontail rabbits. They were found as babies. So what you see here, we have them as two little babies here. They were so tiny, you could fit them in your hand. And then as they started to grow, they got bigger and bigger. And once they were big enough, we released them back into the wild. And then here's a little video clip just so that you guys understand that it's not just animals that grow and reproduce. It's also plants. So again, here's that little acorn. If you go outside and find yourself a good acorn that hasn't been eaten on, you can actually plant it and it might grow into a baby oak tree. Eventually, many, many years later, that little baby oak tree will turn into one of those giant mature trees that you guys see outside. So I'm gonna fast forward it just a little bit so you can see some more and how it grows or germinates. So the science word for when a plant sprouts, it's called germinate. So you can see how it pushes its way through the soil. And then we have the start of a baby tree called a sapling. So that's pretty cool because you can find acorns all over the place. And this is just a quick little song about acorns turning into a giant tree. I'll read it really quickly. So oak tree, big and tall. How you start as acorn small. Plant the acorn in the wood. Time and care the acorn should. Grow up strong for all to see. From acorn small to tall oak tree. And there's lots of different kinds of acorns that you guys can find too. So my at-home challenge for you guys, again, keep in mind that living things grow and reproduce. So see if you can find a seed or an acorn maybe to grow. You can also regrow vegetables from scrap. So remember, vegetables come from plants as well. So those plants are living things. So sometimes if you're done with your lettuce that you have at home or a carrot, if you chop off a piece of it and place it in water like you see in this picture, you can start it to regrow. You can also do the same thing with potatoes. I buy a lot of potatoes, but I don't eat them fast enough. And sometimes they will actually start to sprout on their own. So you can just chop those potatoes up, put them outside in some dirt and plant them. And that is what you see in this picture here. It's a potato tower. And then my reflection question for you guys. Again, we as humans are living things. We can grow and reproduce. So think about, how do you look like your parents or your relatives? And think about, how has your appearance changed as you have grown? So something fun that you can do at school is see if you can bring pictures of yourself when you were a baby and compare it to how you look now, or compare it to how you look compared to your other family members. So you can see how I and my brother have changed as we've grown up. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop.